Man, it's a Friday. You don't take.
It's a Friday for everybody.
Don't take banners down in time, man.
It's the first Friday of the year, man. It's this is just what it is.
Exactly. Okay, and since your time is somewhat truncated here between now and 9:30, opening kickoff, I yield to Jarrett Smith. What's on your mind?
Oh, damn! I wasn't ready for that. Damn it. Okay. Hey, remember how much y'all asked for roster turnover? Yeah, you getting it?
Yeah.
One in particular that I will pour one out for today is the reported by him himself that Dom Dwyer is heading out of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Dom Dwyer was a lifetime villain of MLS, a lifetime villain of Atlanta in his time down in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he came up here, though, and like any good performer, the heel pulled a face turn and was able to work multiple angles of the character.
Yes, he was.
To drop the facade for a second, Dom Dwyer reporting that this is the end of the road for him in Atlanta. I believe he had originally there was another year on the contract, but
yeah,
I don't know if this is something that the team is doing or if this is something he's doing or something he requested. He has been very involved in his kids' lives,
mm-hmm.
and his.
See, Robot Jarrett was trying to make a shout out. There we go. Now,
I wouldn't be shocked if he tries. What?
Now I think you're back. You drifted out for a second. Robot.
Sorry. I wouldn't be shocked if he makes a trip out west of the Rockies to be closer to his kids.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be a very important part of his life. If you follow him on social media, I think that was one of the appeals of Atlanta, because when he did that, she was still playing in Orlando in WSL. And I think that Atlanta was close enough you can make that work. It's cross country now with her being traded because NWSL has zero object permanence when it comes to their stars. But Dom Dwyer was a heel. He was a heel in this league. He was a heel for people here. A lot of people were very annoyed when he got signed because Dom Dwyer was a heel.
Mm-hmm.
He was the bad guy. But
the bad guy.
Dom Dwyer came in and worked his ass off.
Mm-hmm.
Scored a goal in the opening game against Sporting Kansas City. Every time you saw him get on the field, you knew he was going to bust his ass, whether that meant getting a red card against Montreal, which was hilarious. Just came on the field like you had given a kid like 3 boxes of like high C, like little ecto coolers,
yes.
And then just said, go wild. And then he did.
Uh-huh.
It was amazing. But Dom Dwyer busted his tail and really endeared himself to the fans here. I hate to see him leave because I love the veteran presence he had as a backup striker. Right now, you're looking at, and I know their rumors will be gone over today. I know, don't at me.
Yeah.
I know the Tom Bogert stuff about Joseph Martinez. Also, let's hit this real quick because we can get into this later as well. Because I've seen a lot of the talk, like Taylor Twellman and Tom Bogert were going back and forth about designated players and this, that, and the other. Like, guys, there's mechanisms. Mm-hmm. Again, object permanence. There's mechanisms to buy people down. Well, we can't do that. They have 3 DPs. They can buy them down. Atlanta's been buying DPs down for years.
Mm-hmm.
Clubs buy DPs down all the time. Yeah. They can buy one out. They can loan them out and get them off their books for the year if they have to. I'm assuming it's Rodolfo Pizarro is going to be the one who just gets put in an airlock.
Yeah.
But these mechanisms aren't like locked in place and set with the obsidian built by the dwarves under the Lonely Mountain. This is not how it works. So quit confusing everybody about well, they have all these DPs, so they can't do it. They can buy them down. There's literally mechanisms in place in the league you cover. That's a thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into that later. But because with him allegedly being looked at by Miami, and I've seen a couple, I think Doug Roberson mentioned as well. I mean, there are talks right now. Nothing is fully in motion according to reports. It's just talks.
Yes.
That would leave you with Jackson Conway as your striker. And I hate it that Dom would be on the way out, because it is not so often in life that you find the heel that is so easy to hate that becomes so hard to let go eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're at.
Yeah. And, to have had the possibility of a Jackson Conway learning from a Dom Dwyer for an extended length of time. Yes, in the way that the show is going to lay itself out this morning, it's a Friday, so it's normal stuff until 9:30, anticipating our friends from Beyond Goals to come on at 9:30 to 10. And then we pick up All Hell Breaking Loose and trying to grab a Comet's Tail starting back at 10 o'clock where we preview the week.
I mean, can we – I want to put a sign up of 0 days since Atlanta United roster chaos.
Yeah, really?
And I mean, a lot of it is just – it's just the way the ball bounces, the cookie crumbles, whatever you want to call it. You're just getting moves out of the way. Again, you still have plenty of time to make moves coming in.
Yeah.
But as anyone who has decluttered a house knows, you have to get stuff out before you can put stuff in.
Correct.
Yeah, it's going to be chaotic this morning. Hopefully we just get a break from the news. God, I would really love a break from the news. And yeah, Rack, to your point, I think you're right. I think it's I do think it's a matter of he wanted to be closer to his kids.
Yeah.
I would assume anyway that if he continues playing, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Dom Dwyer's I don't know how long he's gonna play. I think he's carved out a really nice niche for himself in Atlanta, and he could do the same thing in a lot of places as a really good backup striker option who can also be a veteran. Because he doesn't have – I don't know if he's got the 90-minute burst he did in his Sporting Kansas City days and even the very beginning of his Orlando days with MLS Orlando. USL level Orlando was a different animal. Mm-hmm. He was younger and had more of that he was more spry.
Yes. But
him coming on and giving you 30 to 45 minutes of hell is something he can absolutely be. It is very strange, though, this feeling of, hey, Dom Dwyer's gone, and, man, everything feels a little worse for it as a fan.
Concerned it, drat.
Yeah, I mean, it stinks because, yeah, he had really endeared himself to the fans in a great way. We reached out, I think he shouted out the supporter section. Yeah, Rack mentioned it as well. A direct shout out to the SG social media accounts, which was a nice extra touch on top of a general goodbye. Dude knows how to make fans love him, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He is very much in that camp of when he is not with you, you hate him. When he is on your team, you love him. I'm very sad to see him go. A lot of it because, like I said, it's so rare that you'll find somebody who is here or isn't here, and you're like, man, I would fight that guy on site. You really wouldn't. I promise you. Do not ever fight a pro athlete on site.
No.
I want to make that clear. If you have seen the show Shoresy, which is one of the best new shows of 2022, don't let anyone tell you different. My money, it's better. For my money, it was better than Letterkenny. Maybe it's just because it was. I think for me, it was just because the way it was structured. It had more of the plot was more staked into the ground as opposed to kind of floating around the ether, which is pretty much Letterkenny's ethos.
Yeah.
Shoresy for me, I enjoyed it more. Also, it might be the best adaptation of telling a hockey story since Slapshot.
True.
Go look up the video of Diaby, who was actually was a third-round pick, I think, for Nashville back in the day as a hockey player. He was playing in Quebec for a while, and a fan said something racial to him because he was a minority. He went over he reached over the penalty box glass and just absolutely took this man to church. Do not fight pro athletes under
Don't.
any circumstance.
Don't do that. No.
They're in better shape than you are. They're faster. They're stronger. They are finely tuned machines. They have been living in the Colto tanks and healing up constantly. They have been in the Vegeta hyperbaric chamber. Do not fight pro athletes ever. But I digress.
They've had less liquid reinforcement than you may have had in a particular instance.
And their body processes it better than you do, probably. Again, finely tuned machines. But yeah, Dom Dwyer went from a guy that nobody liked to a guy that now we're just kind of like, that sucks. No one wanted him to leave.
Yep.
I cannot imagine a world where they don't make a bunch of additions, given the amount of money they are freeing up, as well as roster space they are freeing up.
Yeah.
Now, you have some homegrowns coming up. You have Noah Cobb, who just got called into national team duties with the youth national team. Mm-hmm. Deservedly so. He's been fantastic. Aberdeen, you may not have him.
No, neither can you have Johnny Vial.
No, you may not. That was still my favorite development of them laughing like Johnny Vial keeps falling down in like the 45th minute. By minute 80, they're like, yeah. I mean, if y'all want to loan him out, we got you.
Hey.
I mean, he falls down a little too much for our liking, but Jesus, he's just dribbling half the team.
Mm-hmm.
But Noah Cobb's deserved it. AJ Fortune, the Johnny Fortune, you'll hear it both ways probably, is a homegrown as well. But you freed up a lot of roster spots. You freed up some money. Now we see what they do with it.
Yeah.
Now we see what are they going to do? Where are they going to spend it? Because I can't imagine you're not going to go into week one, intentionally with Jackson Conway as your A1 striker, assuming the Joseph Martinez moves come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Which, hey, if something like that does happen, like if he is traded to Miami, I know a lot of people don't want him to be traded within the league. There's this understandably sentimental feeling of he's ours. We don't want to see him in another. It's that thing where we don't want to see somebody who meant that much to us in another shirt. Right. It's weird seeing Freddie Freeman in a Dodgers jersey still.
True.
It was weird seeing Matt Ryan in a Colts uniform. It wasn't weird seeing Matt Ryan unpeel himself from the turf. I was used to seeing that part.
Correct.
But it would be weird seeing Joseph Martinez in another shirt. It would be the best option, though, if he's not going to be here, though, because at that point, someone else is taking a salary, and you free up a designated player spot, with which you can go ham. There's a lot they'll be able to do. We'll just have to see, man. But I actually, I do wonder, though, if the one we don't mention in this, and I just mentioned him, but Jackson Conway, like, what does it look like for Jackson Conway going forward?
Right.
I am very intrigued.
Yes. So Jarrett will be joining us in hour number 2. Hopefully, yes.
Game 1 starters, 5-star dog ass. Game 1 starters, Purata and Cobb. Maybe.
Well, we don't know what Miles Robinson's injury update is.
And that's the thing. That's a very good point. We're expecting Miles back, but I don't know, what the timeline is for Miles, Yeah. And I don't know what the timeline is of blowing my Achilles up.
Right. And we also assume that there's going to be some kind of a transaction to help fill out your center back roster spots. And so that individual, could, center back X, Mr. Center back number 1, or Mr. Center back number 2 to be paired with Air Force One. You figure Noah Cobb's getting some minutes somewhere. But
I mean, you know what? If people have asked for it, if they go out and get Callens, because they have freed up a metric ton of money.
Yes.
If they go out and get themselves a Callens, and if you're able to run like Callens and Purata week 1, and then rotate those guys and have Cobb play as kind of the 4th center back, ain't a bad life to live.
No, it's not.
That's a lot of money to spend, but you're also freeing up a lot of money. Remember, Marcelino Moreno going on loan, his club in Brazil is going to be paying his salary.
Yeah, Curitiba is paying the salary. So basically, Marcelino Moreno's off your books.
Yes. Also, yes, Glavin in a Mets jersey. I do have to jump off. But, yeah, that Glavin in a Mets jersey is another good shout. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so we'll see you in hour number 2.
Hopefully.
Yes, hopefully. So that's Jarrett Smith in the opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee. kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's the QR code for those of you watching on Twitch. And let the joke continue that everybody on Twitch says that when the QR code is up, that's the best that Jon's face has ever looked. Kickoffcoffeeco.com, kickoffcoffeeco, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And once again, when you pick up your purchases with Kickoff Coffee, you invest in Kickoff Coffee. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. Get you 15% off your purchase of a Kickoff Coffee, and they in turn take 10% reinvested into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. So, yeah, so that's opening kickoff, but it's kind of going to be a perpetual story this morning with all of the activity that is going on here involving Atlanta United, obviously, with folks getting ready to show up to have your physicals. You kind of want to have your roster, as you lean into training camp, you want to have an idea as to, okay, who's going to be around and, who can we maximize our time with, this kind of stuff. So Alan Franco was officially yesterday. He was announced. Marcelino Moreno on loan to Coritiba. And the very 90s video that came out, very, very cool stuff from our friends at Curitiba. Marcelino Moreno, his salary's off your books. And then the stuff with Dom Dwyer. And, you think about those heels, and it's funny. You sit there and it's like you hate the guy when he's on another team, but when he's on your team and he does what he does in your uniform, absolutely perfect guy to have around. And then Dom Dwyer, you can't say enough about him. And I want to know where Dom is going to be next season in Major League Soccer, because if it is one of those crossover games and it is one of those matches where the Western Conference team comes to Mercedes-Benz and Dom Dwyer gets announced as either a spot start or a sub, I want to know what the ovation is going to be. And we all, I think, have a feeling as to what the ovation is going to be, but it's going to be really cool to have that Dom Dwyer moment, because he busted his hump, absolutely busted his butt as your backup striker, to be that example. He was there in the locker room as the example, there on the field as the example. But yeah, if this is what we had somewhat anticipated, that, when the offseason started, that Dom was looking for an opportunity to be closer to his kids. So the commute just to see them and to be a part of their lives isn't cross country, then, this makes absolutely, too much sense. They're out on the West Coast, Knicks. Los Angeles is a safe bet. I don't know what city specifically. It could be one of the suburbs of Los Angeles, but let me get Sydney's actual location. And she plays it with. She's on the Angel City roster, and so she was on the Angel City roster last season, and so she was. So back in June, Angel City acquired Sidney LaRue from Orlando and got $75,000 in allocation money and the natural first-round pick in the 2024 draft. So she's in Los Angeles with Angel City, and so you completely and totally understand that. Hey, you want to be close. You want to be closer to your kids. Completely and totally get it. And once again, this is the front office that that you want to do it. You want to do a solid. You want to continue that relationship of doing solids for your players in situations like this. And so, if it's an opportunity right before training camp for Dom to try and find a team in the Western Conference, so the flight from Atlanta to Orlando early in the season was manageable, but then once Sydney is traded from Orlando City to Angel City, then Atlanta to Los Angeles, that's an entire day that's lost. And San Jose, Ricky, might make the most sense. San Jose, Cascadia, RSL, something like that, Colorado, perhaps. So, any one of those Western destinations where it's a lot easier for him to hop on a plane when he's not playing so he can be with his kids, absolutely understand it. And, you tip your hat to Dom, and I don't think we can do that enough here. And, sit there and go, dude, you absolutely were there 100% for your team, but it's time to do you a solid. You're missing those formative years for your children. You want to be closer to them so you can be a part of their lives. Absolutely, totally understand the idea. If that, and like I said, it's not something that was made public, but you can kind of sit there and say, yep, totally understand that if this is in fact the reason that, as much as family means to him, give him the opportunity to be with a club in the western part of the country, and then you can sit there and completely and totally go from there. But yeah, Rack, from your early stuff, did right by us with his goodbye. Never loved and hated the same guy so much. Absolutely, and that's the fun part of sports sometimes, is because one of the guys that sticks into my mind is Sean Avery in the National Hockey League, because when Sean Avery was a Ranger, or he was an LA King, or wherever Sean Avery was, everybody who was not a fan of the team that he was on absolutely hated Sean Avery. But then when he was on your team, pick your enforcer, like a Ryan Reeves these days. That's the kind of guy that you sit there and go, man, I don't like that guy at all. He said, oh, we hate him. But then he's on your team and he's wearing your jersey and he's doing the same thing. It's like, yeah, you got that from Dom Dwyer. And I'm looking forward to the day to see the response of the Atlanta United fans when Dom Dwyer shows up and is introduced in a match when he comes back to Mercedes-Benz, in whichever form or fashion it is. Looking forward to it. And yeah, Rack, to your point, sending direct shout-outs to the supporters group social media accounts. Nice touch on top of a general goodbye. Knows how to make fans love him for sure. Yeah, and sometimes it's hard tackles. Sometimes it's sticking up for your teammates after a hard tackle, because there have been times where you would have a guy who would, if you had someone who was caught in a nasty tackle, who was the first guy to jump in the pile. Usually it was Dom. And Dom is going to sit there and he's going to defend his teammates, and he's going to get in there and he's going to point fingers, and he's going to goad you into something. He's going to draw a foul. He's going to sit there and draw a card. He might get cards on his own. Yeah, and David mentioned the 3-minute red that was attached to it. But so yeah, it's sad to see him go. You completely understand it, and then you're looking for striker position. You're looking for backup striker right now, and then Nix wants to know what the starting squad's going to look like in 22 days in Chattanooga. For the first 45 minutes, it might look as close to normal as possible. Then you may see a Noah Cobb in the second 45, and then you might see all the guys that have been brought in for to help you out with roster construction, and see what that looks like in the second 45 going up against Chattanooga FC. But yeah, and 5 stripe it might be Air Force One and Noah Cobb, your starting center backs. I'm thinking Chattanooga. I'm get me into training camp first before I sit there and I start thinking about February 25th. But so we'll see. But obviously, there's the news with Joseph Martinez. We'll get into all of that. Yeah, Ricky Dansby in the Cubs jersey. Yeah, no doubt about it. And so, and that's the thing. Ricky says he's going to miss Dom, and you're not going to be the only one. So there's and Michael, and getting into the Dom Dwyer discussion, my wife has several picks with Atlanta United players. One of the most treasured is the one with Dom. Great interactions with the fans, yeah, and with the divorce with Sidney LaRue. I would say, Emilio, yeah, that might be a part of the discussion because of the news that came out yesterday. And like I said, we'll get into that on the other side. We might get into it a little bit with in a general sense, if we are joined by our friends from Beyond Goals, if it's Greg or Michael this morning, getting into all of that discussion. And so speak of the devil, when you sit there and he popped his collar. He's ready to go. So you see, now he's completely, totally ready. Cap, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, John. I wasn't going to leave you hanging twice in a row.
Oh, no. See, but that's the thing is that with the holidays, I figured that you being the family man that you are, you had massive family plans. You had a lot of wrapping duty, and you have to do it. Do you still, when you're wrapping presents, do you still have to do it fairly clandestine, or can you do it out in the open? What is the Santa Claus intel in the Parkhurst household?
Well, my wife does all the wrapping, John, because she loves wrapping.
Okay.
I cannot do it well enough for her
Really?
liking. She's like a professional. I'm pretty sure that when she retires someday, like she'll be this old lady that just does free wrapping for people because she just loves it.
Just from door to door, free wrapping. I'll go ahead and wrap all your gifts for you.
Totally. So I get out of that job, thankfully.
Excellent.
Yeah.
See now, what I have done is I have enlisted nieces. I sit there and it's like, you don't want me. Look, I'm the guy of full disclosure, story time with John. 1 year, the boss, she likes spicy food, and a particular potato chip, I should say potato crisp, because they're not potato chips with these folks. They came out with a limited edition release of sriracha flavored potato crisps. And so I go to the store and I buy them out. I mean, limited edition. And I buy like 15 of those canisters, and I wrapped it like a Gatling gun. It was like in a pyramid 4-3. And I'm just wrapping it like this, and I don't care what it looks like. That's what I do when I wrap. It's like, okay, do I care about squares and neat folded corners and things like that? No, I either enlist the nieces or I just wrap it and it looks like a mess, and it's almost like the gag gift of the entire Christmas holiday.
Your gift is easy to pick out from under the tree.
Correct. Absolutely correct. So how was the holiday, by the way?
Fantastic. Yeah, it was great. We stayed put, had some family come to us. So hosted for a few days here, and low key. So it was nice.
Excellent. All right. Now, since we have turned to the first of the year, it's training camp coming around. And I know that there are folks who have been in our timeline on the Twitch pitch, and there have been folks reaching out to us on social media asking if you and Greg have any desires. Do you guys have any eligibility left? Do you want to kind of show up at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground and help things out? That's what folks are asking so far this year.
The mind has got eligibility, but I don't think the legs do.
What's it like to watch training camp happen again, and you're there in your MLS sweatshirt and cap, and you're just kind of sitting there in the office and sitting there going, man, while it's cool, I don't miss it.
Not at all. There are certain things about retiring that, of course, you miss a lot. But I don't miss what they're going to go through the next 5 weeks, right? That's probably one of the main reasons why I did retire, was because my last preseason, I remember going in and my mind was telling my feet to do things way faster than my feet were reacting to do those things. And I was just so late on everything and just so slow. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is going on right now? I just couldn't do it fast enough. And, as preseason progressed, obviously you get cut up to speed a little bit, but man, it was rough. And just the fitness and everything is just, no thanks. I'll leave it for the younger guys.
Yeah, it's like, nah, you're good. You go for it. It's all you. And when you look at things specifically, we can talk about Atlanta United for a second. And leading into this training camp where everybody's starting to wander in, they're going to get their medicals. They're going to get the hammer attached to the cross knee to sit there and check reflexes and everything. This is going to be a different looking franchise. And there's still a lot of questions whether folks are going to be around or not. There's been a lot of shifting, and we haven't even gotten to the first practice yet.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of question marks going on right now. And, I think it's good because we obviously needed to make changes, right? The last year wasn't good enough. And so changes needed to be made. But yeah, when I was looking at Matthew Doyle's recent breakdown of all the teams, he does a really good job on MLS Soccer, breaking every team down and doing lists and charts and all this stuff. And I was looking at Atlanta United compared to some of these other Eastern teams, and I was like, man, the roster's not in a great spot. It really is not. If I'm being completely honest and looking at it, there's a lot of gaps, and there's a lot of depth issues. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done here in the next 6 weeks to really get this team ready, not just to make the playoffs, right? The goal for Atlanta United should never just be to make the playoffs, right? It should be to contend. And we're a ways away from, I think, being able to contend.
Yeah. So, you've had movement with starting players going out on loan, and the benefit of Atlanta United being the global brand that it is that you don't have to be as insular as you might have been if you were another franchise. And dealing specifically in Major League Soccer, there's loans going out, there's searches going on around the planet. I mean, I've heard that there's like a center back on Neptune that they might be checking on, with Atlanta United. That's the reach that you have here. And I think that it is a key offseason with Garth Lagerwey coming in to be in the front office, looking at things from the business perspective. It is a key offseason, but with the youth that's been developed and the wiggle room that you've been given because of an Emerson Hyndman agreeing to mutually terminate contracts, players being loaned out, there is that wiggle room there. This will be one of the toughest exams, if you want to call it that, for the front office.
Totally. And the biggest question mark still has not been addressed at all, right? And it's not good, in my opinion. If Joseph, with Joseph, what's going on with Joseph? Is he coming back or not? And based off of the reports from last year, the end of last year, it seems like he's not, right? And then so if that's the case, and I saw something today that he's expected to be there for physicals today, and it's like, man, a lot needs to be done, right? Because even if he's there physically, I'd have a tough time believing that he's there mentally. And it just causes a huge distraction within the locker room, right? You don't know if he's going to be there or not. And it's like a decision needs to be made. And if he's staying, then, mend that relationship and let him know that he's part of the plans, and that, and come out and say that, or vice versa. Hey, he's not going to be a part of this team, and don't have him be around the team and figure it out. That to me is the biggest question mark, and it needs to be addressed soon, because otherwise it just lingers on, and questions and media and guys, and you just don't want that around the locker room. And all these other moves are happening, which is great. You need those pieces, but the biggest move is still yet to be made.
So one of our contributors here on the network, Bart Keeler, who does the Soccer for US pod, he's in this morning, and he's asking, he says, I think we may have lost focus on creating winning teams for building a big club. How do you think we refocus on winning on the field? That's Bart's question this morning.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, right? I think that, how do you create a winning team, right? Do you go get players that are in their prime, that are ready to step in and win right now? Or do you go get those guys, that are a little bit more unproven, like Almiron, maybe, like Barco, like Almada a little bit, that you can then sell on, and that's been the Atlanta United blueprint.
Yeah. Shouldn't the answer just be yes, choice D, all of the above? Although that is a delicate dance.
It should be, but, the record over the past 18, 24 months of signing those players outside of Almada hasn't been good. And so we're spending a lot of money on these players, and it's not panning out. So, that's what makes it really challenging. And so there's no quick, easy fix, right? You have to. That's why the Joseph thing becomes so important, right? Because even if you pay him out, right, and you say, oh, he's not part of our plans, thank you, but we're moving on. then pay him out, and then you've got that spot open, and you can do something with it. And that becomes obviously the biggest decision for the club, because you can't get that big one wrong again. We've gotten some medium-sized decisions wrong on players. You can't get the biggest one wrong. It sets you back a lot. And so and maybe they don't have that player to replace him yet. And so that's why they're hanging on and trying to still figure it out. And maybe they don't want to pay him out. They're trying to trade him within MLS, and that's taken a little bit of time because it's complicated. Right. But I like the Etienne signing. Like those types of signings are critical for MLS teams. Like we said, like you have to have those veteran players that have been around the league that are good for the locker room. That's what we had with myself and Jeff and Brad and Darlington and Justin Miram and I'm blanking on Peterson, Jake Peterson, and even Bobby Boswell for a short amount of time. Like even if they're not playing a massive role, they're important for the club and for the locker room. And we don't have a ton of that right now, especially when Brad went down last year and Miles. So I think the signings like that are good. Hopefully Miles has come back. I just see what he's been doing in the off season, and it looks strong, looks good. So hopefully he comes back fit, ready to go. And same with Brad. It'll make a huge difference, but still big question marks in the middle of the field, which is important. I haven't seen anything on Ozzy Alonso. Hopefully he's coming back, but I don't know what you can realistically expect out of a 38-year-old. Is he 37? Coming off an ACL tear, playing on turf. I mean, what can you really expect? I don't know. So the middle of the field is a big question mark for me. So yeah, there's a lot, but it can be done. They've got money. They're clearing out a lot of space. So they can do it. Joseph is still there. If they can turn that ship around and keep him, then great. You're in a much better spot. And if they can't, then it's doable with the money they have and the space they have. It's just finding the right pieces.
Do you, with your mentees, do you have these real world discussions about whether it's the business world or whether it's about the business of soccer? How deep are those conversations? How inquisitive are your mentees about what it's like to be a professional athlete in this day and age?
A little bit. And just because we only work with a few mentors mentees that it's applicable to, but yeah. And even I speak with Joseph too. And, and I don't view myself as a mentor to Joseph so much as a friend, but I think that we've learned in this world that you have to look out for yourself, and you want to be a team player and be part of a team and give everything you have for the team, because that's what's going to bring success, even individually, and to win titles is fun and all that, but it's a dog-eat-dog world sometimes in this professional realm, and clubs will do whatever they want and whatever is best for them. And so as an athlete, you have to look out for yourself first, because, it's short-lived and you need to make it while you can. And like I said, you can get traded tomorrow and clubs will just move on from you, and things keep going. So, I truthfully, I tell Joseph, don't leave $1 on the table, right? You've earned the contract that you have right now. I thought he was even underpaid at the time when he signed that deal. So my advice was him, don't leave $1. If they need to pay you out, they pay you out. And otherwise you take it because he's earned it. And, that's the same thing with other mentees, right? You tell them, hey, you want and hope that people have your back and will respect you and do what's best for you all the time. But that's not the case, unfortunately. And so you always need to be having that thought of like, okay, what's best for me? How can I improve myself? And taking ownership of that journey and not relying on other people to always make things happen for yourself.
As
a little blunt, but
no, but at the same time, have those conversations altered in any way as professional sports have become more lucrative? I mean, how difficult was it for you to look out for yourself when your career was starting versus maybe your last contract by comparison? How has it changed in looking out for yourself in one aspect to the latter parts of your career?
Totally. And then there's that fine line that we always talk about, right? As a young guy, you don't have any power and you don't have any influence or anything like that. So you got to go out and you got to grind and you got to prove it first, for sure, right? It's not like, oh, I'm not getting playing time, let me go find a new club, right? No, you got to grind, you got to earn it, and you got to make it work. And shoot, I came into the league making like $30,000, and I thought I was living king-like because guys like Jeff Lorenowitz were making like $15,000. So these young guys are living a good life right now, making 80, 70, 80 plus. So the grind is a little bit different, but it's still physically and mentally still a grind, and they have to earn the fact that they can then use some of their power and look out for themselves. But yeah, you have to earn that first, in those early years, and show that you're willing to put that work in, and deserve to continue to be a pro.
Michael Parkhurst, Beyond Goals Mentoring here for the Friday Free Kick, hanging out with us here on SDH. Can we talk national team a little bit?
Oh, hey, why not?
Okay. Well, I mean, we're having blunt conversations this morning, but what I wanted to do, and like I said, you can address this as bluntly as you wish, or we can turn it into a mentee issue, because there's that aspect of it as well. Everything going on since you've represented the country and you know what it means. Everything going on with Greg Berhalter and the front office and the Fed and the Reynas. Have you ever seen anything as wild as what we've seen in the last couple of days?
No, not at that level, right? I mean, you're reading this stuff and you're hearing about it and you're like, oh my God, like this is the stuff we're trying to eliminate as a society from youth sports, right? Every youth coach out there is like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. You've got a mom calling up the boss, complaining about whatever the coach is doing. Like, what are we doing right now? It's sad. It honestly is sad. I don't know the Reynas at all. I've met Claudia once briefly, but I don't know them at all. And so I hate to pass judgment without knowing the complete story or anything. But regardless, the entire debacle is sad for U.S. soccer. It's sad for sports. It's a terrible sight for youth athletes, youth parents, for anybody to see. It's just ridiculous, because this is the stuff that we all know politics is a part of sports, and it's too big a part of sports all the time. And this is just like now at the very, very highest level, you see like, oh, here's a family trying to get involved in what's going on with the national team. It's just unbelievable. And I think that there's mistakes made, right? I was surprised when Greg came out initially about that story about the player almost getting kicked off the team. Everyone then quickly makes the assumption that it's Gio Reyna, right? And so I was surprised at the time, because that's not something that you'd really come out with and say. There's no need to. There's no reason to, if it hadn't already gotten out. And I saw something that he said he thought it was on off the record and stuff, but he should know better than that, right? There's nothing as off the record. And so I was surprised that he said that and it came out. But at the same time, like if it happened to my kid, there's no way, even if I had a relationship with the GM, there's no way I'm making that phone call or anything like that. Like there's only one reason why you make that phone call. And so, yeah, it's just a terrible, terrible look for both families. I feel for Greg's wife. Like she didn't deserve any of this. It's sad for U.S. soccer.
And the reason that I wanted to ask the mentee follow-up is because I wanted to ask how prevalent that helicopter parenting still is, whether it's, something that you directly see or something that anecdotally or anything like that. How prevalent is it still today in the circles that you're either directly in or get the chance to view? How active is that still these days, do you think?
I think it's very prevalent, very active. I think that there's a lot of parents out there that want the kid to, or their kids or children to get to a higher level than the child actually cares to or wants to or is dedicated to. And I don't know if they're living vicariously through their children or their mistakes, or they didn't do it when they were young and now want their child to try and do it for them as well. And so there's a lot of it, and it's not great. It's unhealthy. It's short-lived, right? The one thing I always say is like that in order to get to the highest level with anything really, but obviously, I'm talking about soccer, the drive's got to be internal. And if the drive's coming from mom and dad or even coach or somebody else, it's short-lived. It's not gonna take you all the way, right? Because there's going to be those moments where the grind is rough and mom and dad aren't there, or coach isn't there, right? And it's on your own. And if the drive isn't internal, that's it. It's going to come to an end. Mentally, it's just going to be too much, or physically can't deal with it anymore. And so I think sometimes as parents, we're not doing our children a good service by letting them grind through some of those things and figure things out and see if that drive is within them rather than providing it for them. But yeah, it's really prevalent, and I feel for Gio in this case, right? I doubt he was like, "Hey mom, can you call up Ernie for me?" And obviously Gio himself has some growing to do. And, I thought his response to the whole thing, his Instagram post was pretty good, right? He said, I didn't expect for any of this to come out. I made a mistake. You got to own the mistakes. And, I thought he did that. But yeah, it's rough for him. It's terrible look, right? You've got mom out there defending you. And people are going to hate on Gio because of that. But I doubt Gio asked mom to do that. And I'm sure there's plenty of moms and dads out there that have, been upset with coach about why is my kid not playing, or why is this, or why is that, right? And it's just a lack of taking ownership and looking at things realistically. Like, oh, maybe my kid's not good enough, or maybe his attitude's not good enough, or maybe it's because of me. So yeah, it's always been a problem in youth sports, and it's still here.
Do you have to, and I'll ask this two separate directions. I said, do you have to face this as a mentor? Do you see it yourself? I mean, and have to address these kinds of things either as a parent or a mentor? Have you had to be in these situations where you've had to kind of sort things out and kind of lay down the law here?
A little bit, yeah. We try and do it as PC as we can, and a lot of times, especially when we do things in group sessions, we encourage parents to be there, because we do talk about some of these topics, and sometimes we're looking at the kids and talking, but we're speaking to the parents, and they should understand that. And then individually, we always try and have a parent involved every now and then. And, it's easy for us to see how involved or over involved the parent is. And, there's been a couple instances where we've had to say, I think that, the child might be feeling some of pressure or anxiety due to some of the stuff that's going on at the house or coming from inside the family. And so you may want to look at that or address it, but it's just feedback from what we're seeing, and usually they're pretty receptive of it. Sometimes they don't even know that that what's going on, or that it's occurring, or that they could be doing that to their children. So yeah, unfortunately it's something that we've dealt with before. But again, we're trying to give these kids the best opportunity to have success in whatever they do. And so are mom and dad, but sometimes they just don't understand the harm that they're doing.
Yeah, they don't understand the knock-on effects because, say, in Gio Reyna's case, you're talking about his team in Germany and his value to them, which is now damaged because, even if Gio completely balls out in the Bundesliga, then you're still going to have that specter hanging over him if you want to sit there and move Gio on and have that next big contract with a transfer with a sell-on fee. They're impacted. The national team is impacted. Austin FC is impacted because of Claudio's employment. There are all of these different little knock-on effects that I don't think parents may necessarily realize. And I know that we were using the Reynas specifically with all of their different knock-on effects, but parents don't necessarily understand that it's not just this linear thing where, okay, I'm here and I'm trying to either live vicariously through my child or I'm having this impact through my child. It's a three-dimensional thing here, and I don't think parents necessarily understand that a lot of the time.
Yeah, totally. There's absolutely, and I think that some of it is just emotion filled, right? And a lot of times we have to take a step back and let those emotions play out without doing anything, right? Don't take the action right away. We tell our mentees that, right? Especially on the field, right? You could be frustrated, right? Upset at a call with a referee, but don't yell at them right away, right? Take a breath or turn around and yell to the air, because those immediate reactions are what gets you in trouble. And I don't know if this was immediate reaction, but it feels like it was. But yeah, now you've got a national team coach maybe not getting the job. Now you've got a GM at MLS maybe getting fired. It's just the knock-on effects. You've got a player now that's probably embarrassed a little bit. So, it's just crazy.
All right, so let's wrap up by talking 2023. Let's go crystal ball here for Beyond Goals. Look back at 22 for me and what you and Greg are looking for in 2023. What do you guys have on the to-do list that you want to accomplish in 2023 for me?
Yeah, I think two things. One is we want to get more videos. Well, we just created a YouTube channel and we want to get more videos up there and available for public consumption to help out more people and to spread some of the mentoring messaging. But also we want to have small clippets of questions from athletes, right? So if we've got Nagby on there answering a question about something and, other Brad and just a whole host of other athletes, retired and current, answering questions about the mental side of the game, about nutrition, about fitness, about off-season workouts, this, that, and the other thing, that can just be informational for people that are just looking for that consumption. And so that's number one, or 1A or B, I don't even know. But the second thing is the nonprofit side of things. We want to have a bigger outreach to those that can't afford our services and to spread our knowledge out there. So those two things are at the top of the list for 2023.
How does it feel to have grown Beyond Goals to where it is now? And I know that you sit there when you take that big leap and you want to start something. What's it been like to see what you and Greg have been able to build so far, knowing that there's so much more that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, it's been exciting. It's been a really fun ride. We came in with little expectations and they're kind of like, hey, let's start this up, see what we can do. And we've been really thrilled with the feedback that we've gotten, the ability for us to have outreach, to connect with kids and really help some players develop and take the next step. So that's been really, really rewarding. And we think that there's a lot more that we can do. And even if we expand it somewhere down the line, but there's definitely a need for mentorship, for the mental side of the game, for outreach. So we don't know exactly where the end game is, but we're going to try and figure it out.
Okay.
One question.
Yes, sorry. We got extra time here, so we're going into extra time. David, Michael is a parent. I don't watch practice as I want the coach to coach him and try to keep myself out of that, and I don't have the time. Some watch every minute, and then can talk about practice at home. Is there an age or time or thoughts on which of these styles might best benefit your child?
Yeah, one thing I'll say is there's a lot of, I don't know if you've ever heard the term practice player, right? Where you've got these players that are very good at practice and then they get to the game and they don't play as well.
Ranger golf. Absolutely.
And some of that, I feel, is because they don't have the parents yelling at them at practice, because a lot of parents don't sit there and watch practice, right? The kids are just free to play and they're out there with the coach and their buddies, and it's just fun and they're learning and they're doing it, right? And so there's less pressure and there's less, eyeballs, and there's less communication from parents. And so there's definitely a benefit to that. I love watching my kids as much as I can. And so I love watching their practices. So I go to all their practices that I can go to. But I try not to sit right next to the field, and I don't say a word. And after practice, I usually don't say a word either. I let them talk about stuff that they want to talk about. Unless I saw like an issue come up, and then I'll ask about an issue, but I try not to give any critique, any advice, unless they're asking for it, which is a rarity. Because even with my kids, even when my son played soccer, he doesn't anymore. Didn't want to hear it from me, because I didn't know as much as the coach. And so, it's a challenge because we want to help our kids as much as possible. But sometimes the best help is no help. Is just letting them get coached by their coach, because their coach likely knows more than us and can get into them and has more of an effect than we do, even if we know more than the coach, which I would assume I did, but maybe not.
Well, Cap, as always, it's great to have you on Fridays, and we can pull the curtain back. I know that some of these weeks are more frank conversations than others, but I think that it's all very, very beneficial for everyone that watches the game, as a part of the game, has folks invested in the game. Thanks for hanging out with us once again at BG Mentoring and at MF Parkhurst on the Twitters. Cap, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Sounds good, John. Thanks.
All right, Michael Parkhurst hanging out, and Nick Aliffi joining us now.
There we go. For
hour number 2. And, it's been a very, very busy time. And nothing's gone on since you were last here on the show,
No, nothing at all, right? I mean, it's been just some general good time soccer conversation, wholesome, very, very rich in the uplifting unification stuff that we all look for, right? I mean, that's the big things in the world. Yes,
and Bart Keeler crashes the party on a Friday at 10 o'clock. So it's Bart and Nick, and I may just peel myself back to the wall and sit there and let the two of you just kind of go through what's going on. It is officially official, by the way. Atlanta United has loaned Marcelino Moreno to Coritiba for the 23 season. If you didn't see the video yesterday, like I said, very, very cool 1990s vibe. Nick, what was some of the first editing software that you got to kind of play with when you started off in the business?
I was using I built my first editing rig from 2 VCRs and a mini DV camcorder. And I had to get the timing down to where I could get maybe 1 or 2 seconds of black, because then I would take it up to Hollywood Video where I worked, and I would quote unquote fix tapes.
Yes.
Meant that I would edit my own footage using Razor, some clear tape, and some reel. So, that's that old school stuff, man. Old school stuff.
That's what the video introducing Marcelino Moreno looked like yesterday from Coritiba. Very, very cool looking, very retro vibe. And now, of course, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I can get Coritiba jerseys out of Brazil and work them back up here so I can have them behind me. Bart, with all of the lack of activity that has happened in the last handful of days. From 30,000 feet, we'll start there since it's been a while since you were on Monday. Give the 30,000-foot view of the profound lack of activity that we have seen here in Major League Soccer.
This is not good for U.S. soccer. At the end of the day, it's just none of this is good for U.S. soccer.
Right.
The only positive that could come of this is that Greg Berhalter is no longer the U.S. men's national team coach. Multiple reports have said that he was very much going to be renewed until this happened, which I think would have been a mistake, and we've talked about those reasons here on the show.
Yep.
I will say, I don't know how you bring that man back as the coach, given the amount of issues he's had personally with players, and I don't mean snubbing guys, but just the amount of times that it seems like he and players have been out of sync. But this is a big problem, and I do think that his talking openly about the locker room situation when it was so fresh after the World Cup was a mistake. I genuinely do believe that. I know that he thought it was off the record, and he's doing his leadership tour. That's not good leadership, man. Especially to do it literally days after your team has been eliminated, and especially when though he never mentioned Gio Reyna in his comments, we all knew who it was, and he needs to take ownership of that. I know he said he regretted it, but it does seem like he doesn't feel like talking about it was necessarily wrong. I think he regrets just mentioning it. But you talked about it with Parky. This is the most soccer mom moment of soccer mom moments, and I have seen this a lot in youth sports, not just soccer, all youth sports, where a parent thinks that they have certain pull because of their status, either as a player with the club or financially. And we've seen this play out time and time again, and it's at the end of the day, it's never good for the kid. And that's the two parties involved or who are not involved but are involved in this are the ones who are getting hurt the most, and that's Rosalind Berhalter and Gio Reyna. And that part sucks the most because they didn't ask for this. They didn't and would have never expected this.
I think this is there's something very Shakespearean about this whole thing, and I all I have is just an idea of how this seed was planted and germinated. I believe that Gio was a lock to make the World Cup roster, got injured, and was probably going to be left off the roster, and what he probably considered to be an unfathomable sense of generosity, wanted to do his buddy a favor, and knew that Gio would be playing a huge role in U.S. soccer for the long term, bring him to the World Cup, give him a front row seat, and say, look, kid, sit and watch, understand what's happening, learn about not just what to do, but what not to do. And I think he probably put it in a very inarticulate way to Gio, which was, hey, look, you're not going to factor in this World Cup, buddy. And it from then, Gio doesn't see the act of generosity. Gio sees, okay, I'm a good player who's getting put to the side. This is really stupid. So he does what a lot, you've seen it, Bart. I've seen it. The kid goes, no matter what the age, goes, mom, dad, blah, 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 blah. And mom and dad aren't professionals at that point. They're not playing veterans at that point. They're mom and dad who get stupid overprotective and make really dumb, rash decisions. And so at that point, Claudio doesn't see the act of generosity either. And this goes off the rails when it leaks, quote unquote, out to the media about what's going on. And then when they get back, the absolute idiocy to have that quote unquote off the record talk where he was he did everything but hold up like a sign at a WWE event about who he was talking about. And at that point, it goes Chernobyl. And all this happened because somebody thought he was probably doing a good deed. No good deed goes unpunished. There's no difference here. And now it has, like Bart said, the two people who absolutely did not need to be hauled into this were hauled into it. Betrayal never comes from your enemies. It only comes from the people you love. And the Reinas have essentially set their public perception on fire, and also have proven the point that there is a major issue here in America. I'm glad in a way that this has happened, unfortunately for Rosalind, who does not need to be brought into this at all.
No.
But it showcases what I know Bart sees every flipping weekend when he puts on the yellow and goes and tries to help officiate these games. And these kids are out there, they're playing, they're trying to do their best to have fun, and parents are being psychotic, yelling, screaming, trying to joystick the players, go here, go there, do this, do that. The ref, why aren't you making this call? You aren't making that call. You're cheating. There's this level of toxicity that is existing around sports in America. If there's any positive to come from this, it's the fact that there's a massive spotlight that showcases that all things are equal in this. Whether you have no money, whether you have a ton of money, you're probably going to be one of these overprotective Nimrods screaming at your kid from the sideline and making the sport absolutely unplayable for the kids, and certainly unmanageable for the officials, because it puts the officials. I mean, Bart, I'm sure you've seen it too, where 13 and 14-year-old kids who are trying to do line work are put on the verge of tears because there's a 45-year-old man back there berating them for 90 minutes. So it's a disaster zone, and it's terrible for U.S. soccer, because U.S. soccer you were on the up. You had pretty much vanquished Mexico. You've solidified them as not even the second, but maybe the third best team in CONCACAF.
Yeah.
You've completely out-recruited them. You've had I think a very good showing in a World Cup, considering you didn't qualify 4 years prior. And while I agree that Berhalter should have been a one-cycle coach based on principle, that you have set your program back now in the eyes of the fans. And to me, that is inexcusable. And it's not just the women's side has its own unique challenges and issues that are popping up right now. The men's side, it looks like it's a kinder care being run by lobotomized gerbils. And you have, this wild streak of nepotism that has really shown why you don't get involved in nepotism. So, there needs to be a ton of help here. It's just an absolute nightmare yet. And really, what does Austin do here? Austin FC. The Rangers were there. Berhalter's kid was there. Yeah. I mean, this isn't done yet.
Bart?
Yeah, and I think that what bothers me too is, Nick, to kind of build off of that, is that there's this idea that, Berhalter's son was cut by Claudio, so Berhalter's trying to get back at Reina for this. And I think hopefully Greg Berhalter is a big enough person and smart enough person to know that, hey, my kid didn't make it at a club, it's okay, because he has had that experience in his playing career. Hopefully this was not something that both men took on a personal level, but we're also just seeing so many reports out there that have zero credibility. They're not at all made with journalistic integrity. These are just speculations. Now, what I do want to speculate on is, what does Austin do about this? I think Ricky asked a legitimate question, because this is not a GM. What bothers me most, right? Okay, this is where I'm at with the quote blackmail thing, right? Because whether it's blackmail or not, I think is obviously there's an investigation going on. One side has one story, one side has the other. Yeah. Regardless, someone from the Reina camp knew this information about Greg Berhalter and decided that the time to present this information to Greg Berhalter was after their kid didn't get the playing time they wanted. And to me, that is a problem if you're looking at Claudio Reina, when you put that in the perspective of U.S. soccer, because the Yates report, I will reiterate, is not just limited to women's soccer or women's professional soccer. That is a problem up and down the soccer and youth sports general tree of this country. That you have unfortunate realities of mental and sexual abuse at all levels of youth sports and professional sports. I think it just gets heightened through women's professional sports for a lot of unfortunate reasons. Point is, you had Claudio Reyna, who knew this information about the head coach of the men's national team. Apparently, this was not disclosed to U.S. Soccer during the hiring process of Berhalter. I don't even know if it should have been. That is not for me to decide. But if Claudio/Danielle felt so strongly about it, that apparently they do now, why was this information not given to U.S. Soccer during the Berhalter hiring process, which Claudio Reyna would have known was going on, by the way, or at least in the immediate aftermath of his hiring announcement? And that is where the thing that sits the worst with me is just this information was known to these people, and now they're using it as a weapon. That is a problem.
Yeah,
and that's the problem with Claudio.
Yeah, sorry to cut you there. It really is. These are guys who grew up together, Reyna and Berhalter.
Mm-hmm.
This is, whenever this first happened and this report, this came out about the, about the abuse situation with Berhalter. I just remember saying, this is too directed. This is too coordinated. There's not going to be 500 eyewitnesses for this thing. It's probably going to be a handful of folks, people who were very close to them. And now who has the axe to grind? And it
wasn't hard to figure out.
It was not hard to figure out. No one here is Benoit Blanc. Okay. No one here is in a Knives Out situation where we have to find the hole of the donut and the hole of the donut. Right. I mean, this is what it blows my mind now is if you are anyone in the Reyna's orbit, you're looking back now and you're saying, oh my God, when have I slipped up? When have I been because now they've shown you who they are. And yes, by this entire process, we now know, some things about Berhalter that I'm sure, no one wanted to know, but now that it's out there, I don't care your business. There is a public perception aspect to what this magical word that gets cycled everywhere called brand. And it doesn't matter if it was 5 years ago, 50 years ago, it's going to get brought up. And if you are in any sort of brand management, you have to account for that. And you have to have a conversation that was not going to be had 6 months ago. No one was going to say anything about this issue with the Berhalters 6 months ago. But from now on, someone's going to have a conversation. Okay, what do we need to say if we hire this guy, when Twitter starts chiming in saying, okay, Berhalter's an abuser. What do we say about that now? And there are going to be some teams that are going to be like, yeah, we don't want to worry about that. That's not something we want to get involved with. God bless them. They say they've moved on. Good for them. But for my brand, I don't need this, and this team doesn't need this. And so, what Reyna has essentially done here is, he nuked the entire site from orbit over his kids' playing time, and that to
which,
me,
by the way, the kids still played in the World Cup. Like that's the thing that to all of this, it's Danielle's statement clearly says that she did this because of Greg talking bad about Gio after the World Cup, which again, I want to be very clear. Nowhere in that statement that Greg made did he mention Gio Reyna's name.
Nope.
The problem is your kid did something that we all said, oh yeah, that was Gio. I'm sorry, but Gio Reyna does have a lot of responsibility about how that situation played out. Again, did Greg Berhalter go about telling him, hey, you're going to have a limited role? That's probably not the smart thing to do before the World Cup even starts.
Correct.
He definitely, I think, should not have talked about it in the immediate aftermath of the World Cup. That's something you bring about a couple of years later. And again, you're doing these leadership, summit, seminar, whatever tour. Dude, that's not great leadership. But your kid did play a role in his not getting a lot of playing time. That's a problem. Yeah. You can't dismiss that. Mm-hmm. But you came in and decided that his playing time was somehow only the result of a coach who, again, by the way, played him in multiple games. I fully agree he should have played more. I think 100%. I think he would have made our team better. Mm-hmm. I don't think he necessarily changes the result of a lot of the games that we played. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen Gio Reyna more. But why was it so controversial? This is my question to the Reynas. Why was it so controversial? Because Claudio's reportedly talked to Ernie and Brian McBride during the World Cup. That's the other thing. This was not just Danielle coming out after. This is reports that Claudio made contact with Greg's boss and Greg's boss's boss during the World Cup about playing time, which is a very Karen move. Let's just be real honest about that. The playing time wasn't necessarily, again, would I have liked to have seen him play more? Yes. Was the playing time necessarily wrong? Mm-hmm. That's my question. I don't know, Nick. You're more of an impartial USMNT fan. I don't think it was necessarily the wrong decision to not play Gio as much as he did. Now, again, I think he should have played more, but who was he? I mean, it's not like Gio was a locked-in starter for this team. Mm-mm.
Especially coming off the injury, right? I mean, coming off the injury, and I can speak about the U.S. men's national team, from a 30,000-foot view because it doesn't bother me in the least. But but with what I saw here, and with this situation, is a lot of mistakes were made by people who, if you could go back and make different decisions, Berhalter probably isn't even calling Gio in if he had to do it all over again. Gio should have, when Greg idiotically told him, hey, man, you're not going to factor, he should have looked Greg in the eyes and said, watch me training, and I'm going to prove to you why I need to be on the field.
100%. Yep.
But it's easy to say that as a 42-year-old man. I remember when I was, when I was 20, 21, who the hell am I BSing? I was in the Marines, baby. I had to look at my drill instructors all the time as a 5'5" at the time, 115-pound guy, and be like, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
This is not like we're talking to a 5-year-old. All right. He's a professional. I will show you why you need me out there. And so with the Reynas, with Claudio, the audacity in the middle of the tournament to call, to go, let me speak to your supervisor. Mm-hmm. Okay. To pull that move in the middle of the tournament from someone who has been in that tournament, who understands how the locker room is extraordinarily fragile. Every locker room, extraordinarily fragile. And any attempt to upset the dynamic that is existing for a team that was, before the World Cup, doing pretty darn well. And you're trying to come in and disrupt because your baby boy isn't getting the playing time you want? That is not even Karen, okay? All right, that is major Cynthia vibes. I mean, that is like you're J.C. Penney coupon cutting at that point. How in God's green earth, Claudio, I'm going to sort this out, pick up the phone, and Brian, Claudio, get this right. What did you think was going to happen, Claudio? Do you think that Brian was going to call Brian and Ernie? Hey there, Greg. Yeah, you're in the middle of a tournament, buddy, and you're prepping for England. But can you maybe play Gio more? Can you do that for us? Just walk through that rationale there. Now, when Mom decides to start saying, "Oh well, I only did what I did because Gio's name was getting dropped on social media, left, right, and center.
I don't think it was.
Athlete.
First off, I don't really think it looked that bad for Gio.
No. Gio, because you had so many people who were jumping to Gio's defense online. Gio should have played more. Gio should have been more involved. Berhalter's the bad guy. Berhalter's the bad guy. Berhalter out. Berhalter out was trending largely because of the Gio situation. And these Nimrods, and I'm sorry, these Nimrods sat there and said, what if we completely turn this entire situation on its head by being a completely irrational fans? And that's exactly what they did. And it's nightmarish because it shows this culture of people who have, they have phone numbers. I'm going to call my buddy. I'm going to call and I hope, because we don't know, I hope that McBride said, Claudio, shut up, and hit the red button on the phone and hung up the call. I hope that Stewart did the same thing, just to ensure that nothing like this happens again. But this isn't over. Yeah. And if you're a U.S. soccer fan, I as we said at the end of the World Cup, I think you guys, if you're a U.S. soccer fan, you should be just giddy with delight. You had the youngest team in the tournament. You went toe to toe with everyone. I think tactically, Greg got it wrong against the Dutch, and a lot of players, probably went outside of the game plan. So you probably had two things that were going wrong at the same time, and the Dutch were just really fast and exposed you. But that it's not like you look like you had no business being out there at all. Yeah. I mean, people can go back and be like, yep, this goal, this guy was out of position. That goal, that guy was out of position. This goal, this guy didn't track back. Okay. This is very simple. But in the end, you now have a situation where you have an interim head coach, a guy, I guess now technically former head coach is doing Harvard Business Review conversations where he says, yes, I would like the job to be mine still.
By the way, Nick, people are roasting him for saying that. And it's like, of course he's saying that. What Well, and so let's talk legally about that for a second, because I do think that, I mean, it was reported by Max Bretos that Greg was likely to be renewed before this happened.
Mm-hmm.
After this, Ernie Stewart has, in his press conference, and Jason Nix, I'll get to your answer in a second. In that press conference, Ernie Stewart said that he is still being considered, right, among other things. And I think that line has a legal CYA, because you can't say now, with an investigation ongoing into improprieties from outside sources, you cannot sit here and say, well, because of this, we're not rehiring Greg Berhalter, because Berhalter would have a legal leg to stand on for, some sort of hiring practice or employment practice that could come back to bite U.S. soccer. So let's just kind of understand that a lot of what's being said right now has that legal CYA attached to it. I don't think that they can bring Greg back. That's just my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. I think at this point, it would be very hard for that man to walk into a locker room of 23 to 26 professionals and have the respect. I think that it would have been hard for him to do that even after this tournament, because I think he had kind of showed his inability to manage difficult personalities throughout the qualifying process. But there's going to be a lot of legalese coming out. And you have to understand that, because, Jason, to your point, did we hear any more about the throughout this process, U.S. Soccer learned about potential inappropriate behavior toward multiple members of our staff by individuals outside our organization? That investigation is still ongoing. There's your answer.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. What they're alleging, and this is not a serious accusation necessarily, is The Reina's contacted U.S. Soccer with this information. And despite what Danielle says, using this information to discredit the head coach of your son's soccer team is not exactly an altruistic act. You don't just say that
Yeah.
Without wanting something in return. Let's just be real honest. That's where I'm at with it.
The quid pro quo.
There may not have been an explicit quid pro quo, but there seems to be some level of implied quid pro quo.
In regards to the future of U.S. soccer, the question I have right now is who wants the damn job outside of Eric Winalda? Because I mean, and one, I'm frankly shocked that his name has not been brought in.
I would have figured that Eric Winalda would have brought in Eric Winalda's name.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, though, because Eric Winalda didn't exactly do this whole story any favors when during the World Cup, he's bringing out personal issues.
No.
Yep.
I mean, he said it. Yep. And did he have some basis? Yes. But that's Nick, I think you brought this up of Greg. Yes. I don't think that Greg should have sat Gio down and said, I don't think you're going to play a large role in this World Cup. Could he have said, hey man, look, we're still a little concerned about your injury situation. We've talked to your club. Obviously we think that you're good to play, but we don't want to force you into anything that may cause you long-term damage. That's fine. Gio also said that he was told he would have a limited role. We're not quite sure how that conversation went down, but clearly Gio was told, hey, you're not going to play as much as you would. Now, that could have been, hey, you're not going to start against Wales, which, again, who are you starting over Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah?
No.
I don't think so. They were the locked-in starters for this team. But regardless, Eric Winalda comes out and says that has more to do with that Gio's not injured. It has to do with personal stuff. Well, Greg saying that, hey, he wasn't 100% fit or whatever it was exactly that he said, was him trying to protect Gio.
Yep.
That was him trying to say, hey, we're not quite sure about his fitness, which, to be fair, if you're slacking off in training, there's a question of your fitness.
And
mental and physical fitness.
Yeah.
And then Gio saying, no, I'm fine. And Eric saying, oh, no, there's personal problems there. Eric Winalda did not help the situation. So people oh, you need to apologize to Eric Winalda.
No.
Bro did not help the situation.
No.
Now I have always said I think Eric Winalda would be a good national team coach because he is definitely a vibes guy who has a little bit of tactics to him, and I think that works well at the national team level. But yeah, the problem is you have all these guys who know each other because despite what people say, oh, we need outside forces, U.S. soccer is too ancestral. I get it. But these are the players we have. Y'all have to remember that before 1990, we didn't have good soccer players. And even up until the mid-90s, we didn't really have great professional soccer players. Yeah. So we have a very limited pool of people who have U.S. soccer in their background who can work as professionals within this organization.
And for anyone who says bring in outside, I remember when Mexico hired Sven-Goran Eriksson to come in and be the national team manager, and how that was, didn't exactly go over that well. You have a history of some European teams trying to bring in outside coaches who want to implement strategies that just don't make any damn sense to the player pool that they are now managing. The culture is completely different. And with the national teams, you don't have a ton of time to generate respect and rapport with your team. You have to have someone who comes in and very quickly says, yep, I remember, playing on these fields in this town and that town. And, and I know generally how you guys are, we're all brought up. So I kind of know how to run this show. Very few coaches have had the ability to come walking in and just as an outsider and just make it work. Right. But with the U.S. national team, there's a pipeline that has developed. Now you could scream about paper play all you want. I'll agree with a lot of it. but with what MLS has done with their academy systems, what USL, because we don't talk enough about USL and what USL is doing, the USL pipeline development, they are kicking out players in a way that has never been done before in this country. And these are kids who can play, and they're receiving, because the structure, teams from overseas are starting to take notice and poach these kids at a younger and younger and younger and younger age. Now, the main issue, I don't think, is talent development anymore in this country. I think it's coaching, and I think it is organizational. U.S. Soccer has an organizational issue that they must solve for, and that is that it is still the good old boy network. And yes. I don't care that if Ernie Stewart was a former player. Ernie Stewart needs to put walls up around his org and say, fellas, I know a lot of you, ladies and
get a new phone number.
Yeah. I know a lot of you have kids that are coming up through the system. I don't care if we were the best buddies going out to bars and all that in our playing days. The minute your kid puts on a kit for this organization,
I'll lose my number.
You don't call me. You don't talk to me. You don't email, text, carrier pigeon, smoke signal. Yeah. I don't care. Don't talk to me. And they have to do that.
We have that. I mean, we have that situation a little bit here in Atlanta, a little bit, with Carlos Bocanegra and Josh Wolf, who played together for a time on the national team. And you've got Tyler Wolf here in the system. Mm-hmm. Josh Wolf has to trust Carlos Bocanegra to do what he thinks is best for that career / do what's best for his club. And, we saw Tyler go out on loan. He's back. I still think that Tyler Wolf does play a factor in the Atlanta United situation. But Josh Wolf can't call up Carlos and be like, hey, man, why isn't my kid playing? Or, hey, man, why'd you send my kid off to loan in the second division Dutch league? That's now, can he call up and say, hey, man, just wondering, parent to parent, what can my kid do to get better? Those might be appropriate conversations. But even then, Nick, to your point, like, we can't have this conversation as friends. These are conversations you have to have as professionals, and maybe not even have, period, because you're dealing with professional athletes. This isn't even, my kid isn't getting to be on the top, team A at this club, and I'm going to call the sporting director because we played together in high school. That's not what this is. These are professional athletes. Mm-hmm. And to your point, Ernie, Brian, Greg have to put walls up and say, these are the boundaries you cannot cross. We have to make these decisions based on what we think is both best for the program, but also best for the individual player. Mm-hmm. And it's a mess. But again, this is what we have. Again, it's not like we have a long history of great professional soccer players in this country on the men's side. We just don't.
I remember I'll give a little bit of family story here, mainly because my uncle used to run a restaurant, and some of his siblings called up and said, hey, give us jobs, and he was the baby brother. And so he said, okay, all right, fine, I'll bring you in, but understand, I'm not baby brother. When you step in here, I'm your boss.
Yep.
And some of them could not get away from that, trying to keep that dynamic. And he fired all of them. I mean, like, nope, you're not coming in anymore. Well, why not? Because you showed up late 4 times in a row. The other one, you no call, no showed. The other one, you were taking, 2-hour lunch break. No, you're out. You're gone. I have no time for you. When I brought on some of my friends as interns, whenever I was with CBS Radio, I brought them on because of their skill set. But I had a conversation with each one of them saying, look, we're here to do a job, and just know that I can't be your buddy or your former college classmate. I have deliverables I have to meet. And if I can't get that done, I'm out of a job and you're out of a job.
Yep.
And I promise you, you're going to be out of the job before I'm out of the job. And I managed every damn one of my interns got a job afterward. Not necessarily with my organization, but with other ones, because they worked their butts off, and we had clear understanding and guidelines on how to manage past relationships and current relationships. U.S. Soccer needs to start doing the same damn thing. And I don't see it right now. I see an old school wrestling promotion where in wrestling, when the wrestlers are kind of running the show in the back, they say the boys are running the show. And that's what I'm seeing now. I'm seeing the boys and girls are running the show, and you're getting all kinds of political buffoonery instead of, hey, excitement. We have the potential of a golden generation in the United States for 2026. And that's what the conversation should be.
Yep.
The U.S. is in an infinitely better position than Italy is right now. You're in a better position than
Mexico.
The Belgians, Mexico.
I mean, we're in a position to, Nick. This is obviously thinking way too far. We're in a position to legitimately make a semifinal in 2026. I mean that
question
wholeheartedly, not just because of our talent, but because we're playing at home and we see the bump that teams playing at home or within their region get. I mean, Argentina makes a World Cup final in 2014 because they're playing in Brazil. Like, we know this.
Look, before anybody who listens to this later on says, oh, a bunch of homers are talking a bunch of, look, I have owned exactly one U.S. national team jersey in my life. And it was the Olive and York Starry Night from this past World Cup. That's it. That's the only one I've ever owned in my life. If you go in my closet right now, you're going to see about 8 Italy jerseys hanging up. I have a 19. I have a what's it? Good Lord, is it the 90? I have the 98 track jacket. I'm stocked to the gills. I in no way am a U.S. men's national team fan. And even watching the success of that team, I'm still not. I'm sorry, I won't be. But I am so thrilled that what the U.S. is now doing from a player perspective and looking at this saying, look, you guys are built and ready. I think a semifinal run, I think that should be the goal. I think that shouldn't be just a pie in the sky thing for you guys, because you're going to have one of the best teams in the tournament, bar none, because no one else is going to be able to ramp up as quickly. No one. And have the youth that has that level of experience that the U.S. men's national team has right now, because all those kids went through that World Cup tournament and were competitive every step of the way. England looked like world beaters until they got toe-to-toe with the U.S. men's national team. They walked into the U.S. could have won that damn group, and it was a group that a lot of people, including myself, thought, U.S. may be going out early. But nope, the U.S. went toe-to-toe with everyone in front of them and made it a competitive damn game.
Yeah.
Look, this is maybe a handful of teams are in a better position than the U.S. going into 2026.
Yeah, Jarrett, welcome to Trying to Grab a Comet's Tail, talking U.S. soccer here in hour number 2.
Do I have to cut another promo?
Sure.
I did that yesterday. I did most of my yelling yesterday about just the middle school BS that.
What are you doing? Are you making a cappuccino over there?
Yeah, it's like, what are you?
No, I'm walking on a windy day.
Okay.
I don't drink cappuccino. Thank you.
Cut out of the breeze. However you are. There we go.
I don't drink cappuccino. Thank you, sir. I'm not a coffee drinker in any capacity. That's not my forte. I cut my promo about the U.S. national team yesterday. To y'all's point, like, I don't think anything I can add here is going to be profound, because I'm sure y'all have already covered it. Like, yeah, you're in a great position player wise, and honestly, like, aside from all the buffoonery and middle school nonsense that's happening, like, you should be in a really good position structurally to make 2026 an amazing experience, because you'll be playing at home. You should be able to make a run. To Nick's point, I think if you don't make a quarterfinal, like, if you get out before the quarterfinals, it is an abject and total failure, and everyone should be positively embarrassed. If you want to say that they should make a semifinal where they should be embarrassed, I'm not going to argue with you. But all of that being said, they have to get their collective heads out of their collective asses, and everybody needs to fly right and figure this out, because it's embarrassing that something that's been going on where you usually make fun of people like this. Like, you're used to making fun of people of, oh, hey, that federation's an absolute clown show right now. That's usually, you want to be the one making fun of somebody else, not being made fun of, because you have this little tit for tat middle school rivalry going on like something out of the damn Babysitter's Club book. Because somebody's upset and decided to go full, well, my son didn't get to play, so we're going to sabotage everything and everyone. Grow the hell up. Act like an adult. I know the running joke for the last few days has been like, oh, America's a soccer nation now because we got something stupid happening. I mean, yeah, in theory, it's still stupid as hell and shouldn't be excused in any capacity, in any way, shape, or form. It's positively embarrassing. U.S. soccer should be embarrassed, and the greatest sin might be that maybe they're not.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't know how much they feel truly embarrassed by this situation. And, obviously I can't tell someone how they should feel, but the situation as a whole is not a positive one.
No. Usually I'd agree with you, but yeah, I feel like they should be positively embarrassed by all of this. We talked about this yesterday. I know you guys weren't on yesterday, so I mean, I feel really bad for Greg Berhalter's wife. For that's her story to tell, not anyone else's, and for her having to discuss it is not acceptable.
Well, I mean, my thing is the cowardice of it all. The cowardice of Reyna to go about it this way. If I would much rather have Reyna confront Berhalter face to face, right, and have the old school boxing showdown, right, at the weigh-in.
Square up on the field.
Boxing
square up on the field, man.
Right, go nose to
get on the
nose
field
with him.
and put two hands on him, give him a shove, and let's go.
I mean, if you're going to talk trash about my kid, and I mean, if you're going to be stupid about it, be real stupid about it. Don't be a coward about it, or, oh my God, this is really crazy, guys. This is really crazy. I want everyone to bear with me here. Everyone in the listening audience, bear with me. Try being an adult and a professional and sit there, and when somebody says, Claudio, your thoughts on Greg Berhalter talking about Gio? I have no comment. I'm looking forward to a great season with Austin. The
not anymore. He shouldn't
national
be.
team did a great thing. I'm proud of my son. I love my son. My son's going to be a fantastic player. He's going to be better than me, and I'm looking forward to watching that happen. Outside of that, I have no comment. Thank you. My God in heaven. My God. The audacity of being an adult and a professional and doing something without fisticuffs and without being a coward. My God in heaven.
Mm-hmm. What is it with this 94 team? It feels like we're getting people left and right from this 94 team that just cannot keep their own foot out of their mouth. I don't know if it's just coincidence and circumstance, but
Jared,
Jesus.
Do you want to know what I think it is? I think it's an
afraid?
inferiority complex. I think you had good players. I think you had very good players who recognized that if they had access to the resources of today's players and they had access to the opportunities and that with the stigma being removed about the American player, I think they realized their ceiling could have been infinitely higher. They were the ones who put soccer on the map here in the United States. And now they're not even being brought up in conversation anymore. They don't receive any of the accolades like the 99ers for the women's side. They don't get any of the accolades that any of the other stars get. You don't get like the Mia Hamm treatment whenever Winalda or Harks or anyone else comes walking into the room. Lawless has turned himself into a WWE carnival barker.
Lawless is his own fault.
Right, but you have the Berhalters who have essentially become like pleated khaki pants salesmen. But there's no all you see now of these 94 guys, it's this kind of venom and vitriol and this backstabbing and whatnot. It's like, I'm sorry, you guys are the lost generation of the U.S. men's national team, and you're not getting the love that any of these other younger guys got. I hate it for you, but That's your place in history. And if you wanted a better story, you should have written one instead of letting others write your story. You should, the better you do, there's a reason why Landon Donovan gets better pub than any of the guys in 94. There's a reason why that, Deuce gets a better, story written about him than the guys in 94. I'm sorry, but history plays a role in that. The distance from the present day plays a role in that, and your failure to write your own story. Some of the circumstances are your fault, or not your fault. Some of the circumstances are your fault. Maybe don't hook up with your teammate's wife. I don't know. That's a crazy thing. Who would have thought? But the 94 guys played a pivotal role in soccer development in this country. If any of us all of us who grew up kicking a ball post 94 owe them a debt of gratitude. However, you're not getting pillars of stone carved in your likeness anytime soon, and you're going to have to get over that.
Friday, it's the Friday free for all. I guess I got to come up with a title for this when all of you come charging in here for hour number 2. Nick Aliffi, Bart Keeler from the Soccer for USPOD, Jarrett Smith rejoining for hour number 2. So,
Nick, John, I want to build a little bit off of what Nick just said. Though,
go for it. Like I said, all we got's time, brother.
You mentioned the 99ers and you juxtapose what the U.S. men's national team program drama has been, which is all self-created, all personal vendettas, egotistical battles, versus what the women's national team has had to battle for every single day they've wanted to play soccer since 1987. And the fact that they have 4 World Cups, 5 World Cup finals, 4 gold medals. Like, y'all just look like babies compared to what the women who have been ostracized, sexualized, harassed, victimized, they have faced so many legitimate problems throughout the entire course of the U.S. women's national team history, including now, where they're trying to build a league where they can't get owners to do what's right and say, hey, mental and sexual harassment are wrong. They can't even get that at this point, but yet they're still doing their best to go win World Cups. And the men's program does this bullshit. Get out of here. Get out of here. That's why you don't get the love you think you deserve. That's why. And as you said, you didn't write yourself a better story because y'all were all, even as players, doing this bullcrap. Stop it.
There's the old adage that maybe the grass would be greener on your side of the fence if you would just stop peeing all over it. I mean, this is one of those things. But that's my whole thing is that you are in charge of writing your story. You're going to have circumstances that are going to be thrown at you that you have zero control over. You're going to have dynamics that you have very little play with. But brother, you're the one with the hands on the wheel. There's nobody else that got hands on the wheel but you. And so write your own story. Gio Reyna should have written his own story better instead of throwing a petulant fit, and should have said, Greg, I appreciate that. But you made one fundamental mistake in this, and that's you brought me into camp, and now I'm going to make it my mission to go full Jordan in every practice and show you why the rest of these chumps can't. They need to be carrying my bags going forward. I'm going to put on a show for you. And at the end, you're going to be like, you're going to have to go to bed at night saying, damn, I really shouldn't have told Gio he wasn't starting because he's putting on a show now. And then as far as any of these other guys that are, they're out there, write a better story for yourself. It's ignorant. This whole petulant, nobody has time for it. The women are dealing with so much garbage human beings surrounding their teams, their club teams, and their national teams. And, they've even had, they've had internal petty messes as well. But from the 99ers up, I think they've done a better job of understanding the landscape than anyone else. And this goes also to club sides as well. Just because you're an insanely talented player, your mindset can keep you out of the starting lineup. No one's bigger than the show, baby. No one's bigger than the show. I can't risk the entire show because you are in your fifis for the day, right? I have to put the people out there on the field, men or women, who are going to ball out and who I trust are going to ball out. Get out the fifis, handle that. There's a place for it, and I think everyone should go and handle their feelings. Go talk to somebody, talk to professionals, talk to your friends, talk to your family, whatever. But when you show up on the field as a professional, you must play to the best of your abilities and write your own story. And I see far too many athletes nowadays, and those even from the past, who are now regretting the missed opportunity of not writing their own story.
It sounds like, from everything we heard from the symposium that Greg gave, that the player side has it where it needs to be. When take Gio Reyna, for instance, Gio shows up, is told his role is going to be diminished. He's just walking through stuff, just kind of sleepwalking through it, pouting because he's a kid and he's been told he's not going to get the feature at the World Cup. You don't want to see it, but also have to remember that he's a teenager. And it sounds like after they put it on the players got into him and lit a fire under him, and he was able to turn it around. So it sounds like on the player side, it sounds like it is self-policed in a healthy, efficient way. Mm-hmm. So great job by them, but the eye of that storm is only going to be able to hold off the stupidity of all of the tit for tat around it for so long. We talked about this yesterday. I feel sorry for Gio on the assumption that he didn't have anything to do with this. This is mom and dad going full Karen. Then, I mean, I hate it for him. I hate it for Dortmund because Dortmund's going to lose a ton of value on all this because no one's going to want to deal with his parents. Because, my God, what if I sign Gio Reyna for millions of dollars, and what if something I do makes Claudio Reyna upset or makes his mother upset? They're going to start digging up stuff on me and start trying to undermine the entire process? Because clearly they've shown that they're not smart enough to use a proxy. They're just going to come right for you with a full frontal assault like they're coming over a trench in 1919. This is just, I mean, they're losing value on it. This is going to hang around his collar whether he has anything to do with it or not. And he's going to be associated with this nonsense. Talking with people yesterday after the show, like, yeah, man, it seems like the right move for Greg might be like, look, I don't want Greg back anyway, not because I didn't think Greg did a bad job necessarily, but because I like to change things up after a cycle. I want to change coaches anyway. Let Greg go chill out for a bit because Greg's probably going to have some stuff he has to work through after this as well. Ultimately, a fine World Cup could have been better, but ultimately, like, the dude's been under fire for, 5 years now, 5 years plus. I wouldn't blame him if he just took a break from everything and just crawled in a hole with his family and just chilled out.
Well, I want to put final point on the U.S. men's national team, and then we could jump to whatever else. Look, you want to talk about parents who could be absolutely problematic and on a much larger scale. Tim Weah's dad is the president of a freaking country, and it was the World Player of the Year. How much did you hear out of George Weah? You didn't hear boo from George Weah. Nothing. Not one thing. When Tim's role earlier on was a bit dicey, whether he was going to factor or not, what did you hear from George Weah, the president of a flipping country? Nothing.
When you would have heard it? You would have heard it when he was on loan at Celtic and Brendan Rodgers left in the middle of the night, and then he was left on loan at a club. He was left on loan at a club that had Neil Lennon that basically played caveman ball, which Tim Weah didn't fit. He lost almost half a year of development playing there. Mm-hmm. You didn't hear anything then.
Nothing.
I mean,
nothing.
That would have been the time to hear it. When the guy who brings you in on loan dips in the middle of the night, and then you lose, you played a little bit for Lennon, but I mean, it's not the same style. It's basically caveman, hoof it down the sides, cross it in. Like, that would have been the time you'd have heard something, but you never did.
I'm just saying. You didn't hear anything from a former World Player of the Year. All I'm saying. Yeah. All right. What else do we want to get into today, man?
Well, okay. So news has just come out from the four-letter that TT has ended his tenure as a soccer commentator at the Four-Letter Network.
Good.
And
I assume Apple's going to jump on that.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I think that's the most logical thing for him is he's going to be Apple's lead commentator, probably with John Champion, to be honest.
Yep. Tommy Scoops
Southampton. Southampton want Dyson Maeda. Get the hell out of here, Southampton. You kick rocks all the way to hell. I will stand at the gates and fight you myself, you bastards.
Yeah.
You stay the hell away from my bald son.
Yep. Tommy Scoops had a big day yesterday. This morning, he's reporting an update on Sean Johnson. Nothing agreed with any club per sources heading to Toronto FC for a visit. TFC is interested. Well, duh. Johnson still remains in talks with NYCFC as well. Nothing is decided.
I love this. Can we keep this going, by the way? We're like MLS players who are free agents start doing the NFL thing where we're just going to hey, Alexander Callens is taking a visit today to Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to see what happens.
Cruton,
let's start tracking this.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love it.
It is absolute Cruton. I mean, that's the kind of twist I think that we need to do this for this kind of stuff. It's like so-and-so's taking a visit. Okay, yeah, so we'll just turn this into like National Signing Day kind of a tenure when it comes to everything.
Yes.
Let's see. The stuff with Atlanta United, guys, I haven't had the chance. Jarrett has commented on it as it's gone through the week. Nick and Bart with Atlanta United. Marcelino Moreno on loan. We got the one-word response from Bart when that was officially announced. Alan Franco's at Sao Paulo FC. Emerson Heinemann had his contract mutually terminated by the club. And it was reported Joseph Martinez, apparently Cruton season for Joseph includes Inter Miami and possibly, was it Cerro Porteño? So that's what we're staring at with those four.
Okay, first thought on Marcelino Moreno, good. Sorry, I've never liked him as a player. Sorry. Franco, probably also good. I just think he never really lived up to what we got from him. But I'm a little sad that we're going to have to be shopping for another center back. That's annoying. Emerson Hyman is sad because he never could live up to his potential because he could never stay healthy.
Yeah, I don't think he was legitimately the same ever since he contracted COVID.
Yeah, I agree. The thing about Joseph, though, interleague trades require whatever Garber bucks, right? Like you don't. Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure of all the mechanisms because I don't have I know the rule book. I don't know the secret rule book of MLS, but I don't know of any MLS team who has the money to give us because we're not just going to let Joseph go for $1 million TAM, or GAM. You know what I'm saying? Like that. That's not what's going to happen here. So I know Miami has money, but do they have Garber money?
Don't know unless it's
they can dig into discretionary TAM if they have to, or discretionary GAM.
I guess.
To.
I mean, that's that's going to be all of their TAM.
Well, considering you didn't pay very much to get him in the first place from Torino, would you take less just to clear him off the books and clear out that DP spot though? Because it sounds like from everything we've seen reported in the last 6 months, it sounds like the relationship is fractured in multiple directions here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you aren't putting this mirror back together. If you can get something for him, and if he's really not, if the relationship is done, I would be, I'm not going to tell them that at negotiation tables, but I'd be willing to take a little less just to get him off my books and free up a DP spot. I'm not telling them that at the table, but
no.
I mean, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that sort of trade would look like. To your point, Bart, you don't want to give him away for free, of course. You want to get value for him, but I don't know. It's interesting because I don't know. Have we had this isn't like Hebert going to Seattle. Like Hebert was really good for a year. Joseph Martinez was on pace to obliterate scoring records in this league. We go back to 2019. End of 2019, he was on pace to make Chris Wondolowski live in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we don't know if he's the same guy. We don't know if he can move, if he can produce at that level 90 minutes, 30 plus times a season. What's the value of that guy? Are you trying to sell the guy that he was, or sell the guy that he might be, and maybe he can reach again? This negotiation would be wild as hell to be in the room for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, chiming in on the transactions. One, I like the loan move for Moreno. It gives you control in the event that somebody comes along and says, "Hey, that Almada kid that you have, we're going to offer you $11 billion for him." Yeah, okay, great. We're recalling Marcy, and now he's back in, and you're competitive at the 10 again. Okay, great, good, amazing.
Yes.
That's a great bit of business. Franco, it just didn't fit. It's been one of those things where he had his moments and ability, especially trying to carry the ball forward. I think that there were times, especially as the spine of that team got massacred via injury, that it didn't showcase him in the best light. And that, I don't know a lot of center backs who would have thrived in that situation anyway. I think Maldini and Nesta would have had a problem with the spine of that team getting obliterated the way they did. But it's a chance for him to, get some fresh legs, a fresh surrounding. Good for him. Hyman, I agree completely. He has not been right since COVID got him. It's just one of those things that I hate when, like I said earlier, sometimes circumstances get presented to you you have no control over. You came up in a time of a global pandemic. You got hit with COVID. No one could train the best way possible. So you're not at your physical best. You get a physical injury after that, another physical injury after that. And so you never could quite get momentum. I hope to God this kid finds, because he seems like a great kid. By all accounts, he seems like a great kid. I hope he gets an opportunity to go and play with regularity somewhere. With Joseph, if this were Chelsea, Liverpool, Milan, any team in Europe that did not have a cap, by all means, keep him around and, based on what he's done. If you're in a cap situation, and I'm not talking about any drama yet. We haven't even gotten to drama. I'm just talking money at this point. In a cap league, that's how you end up in the situation like the Falcons were in, where you had Matt Ryan and Julio Jones occupying 20+% of the cap by themselves, right? 20 or 30%. Well, I'd say it was something ignorant, right? Was it higher than that?
Oh, the Falcons the Falcons, I think, are 40 million over the cap as we speak. But yeah, Julio and Matt Ryan did handcuff them from a salary cap perspective.
Right. And so with Julio, the stories start coming out in camp that he could only practice 2 days a week because of injuries or whatever the situation was. It wasn't working for him there. His performance dwindled in games, and people said, you can't get rid of Julio. Look at what this man has done. And yet he continued to tie up your cap. He played him in games as much as you could. He still occasionally presented circus-like performances, but was he worth the cap hit? I want a statue of Joseph outside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think it needs a big, glittery, shiny statue that should stand for all time. But in a cap league, I can't justify that DP hit on the most recent performances. If he goes somewhere else and balls out of control and makes us all look like idiots, I have no problem with that, because he has been unbelievably kind to my son every time he's interacted with him, signed anything that was put in front of him. I know there are a lot of people around town who have very similar stories, but in a dollars and cents game, based on previous performances, I can't justify that. He's a player who I think prepares and trains and performs better when he's pissed off. So maybe a move where he uses Atlanta as the villain to resurrect his momentum and his career, I think would be great for him personally. I would prefer it to be a Western Conference team, but it's, it is what it is, and this is a business, and if you want to be in the business of winning championships in the cap league, you have to make these moves earlier than later in a player's career.
The other team that he's linked to is in Brazil. It's Sport Club Internacional, and they're based in Porto Alegre. They were second in Serie A in 2022. So that's the other club that Joseph is currently linked to as we go forward. It was announced by Charlotte this morning that Aaron Hyde's the new goalkeeper coach in Charlotte. Christian Fuchs has been added to the coaching staff there as well. And obviously, it's a very, very busy time here with everyone in Atlanta. So, because I think today, if I'm not mistaken, everybody starts reporting. Pitchers and catchers report today for Atlanta United, and practice starts over the weekend. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Guys, before we go, Bart, what are you looking forward to the most this weekend? Disappearing. I think that's probably what it is with Bart. So, Nick, what are you looking forward to the most this weekend?
Serie A being completely back underway. Milan came out, had a great showing early on. Juventus is still elbow deep in Allegri ball with their little 1-0 win. But, they're kind of creeping back up in the table, playing hyper defensive. Please God, let's get at least one in. The game that they're doing. Rest in peace to Gianluca Vialli, the man who was the heart and soul of Italy's Euro run, died of cancer, was one of just the all-time good guys that you could hope for. Chelsea fans, Juve fans, Sampdoria, Azzurri fans, we all loved Vialli, and he was somebody who anytime you saw him on the touch line was just, you could tell he loved being there, and that Mancini brought him along for that Euro run, and you could see how much it meant to both of them when Italy won it all. Was just absolutely just beautiful to see. So rest in peace, Gianluca. And blank cancer, right in its blanking year. How about that? But outside of that, I'm thrilled that MLS is, we're right around the corner from getting things kicked off again. And be careful what you ask for. So many people for so long were saying, well, just burn it all to the ground, burn Atlanta United to the ground and rebuild it. Okay, well, brother, you're getting what you wanted. So you don't be shocked by the moves that get made. So, And Ricky Ricardo, when did we start becoming the Brazilian middleman? Brazil goes through phases, ebbs and flows of cash, and they are recognizing, just like so many people, that MLS is a market where players are probably either, depending on how you view it, undervalued or more accurately valued. And so they recognize that they can get players for a bargain. Mm-hmm. So that's why they're becoming the middleman.
Yep. And so we'll keep an eye on Atlanta United as everybody starts returning. Sasha Kleshchin retired from the game, as did our favorite international poker dealer, Mateo Lajos. He's retiring at the end of his season as a referee.
Oh, God, good.
I wanted to, before we go, I wanted to catch up with you about the situation with Umtiti and Lecce and what you thought about everything going on there. Sadly, it's something that continues.
You mean Lazio doing Lazio things?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're watching right now in our American Congress, a few, like 20 something people put the brakes on an entire organization. You see in Italy with Lazio, a group of ultras and a group of idiots who are not just tarnishing the brand of Lazio, they have covered it in uranium dust, and set it loose on the town. So it's Lazio. I've talked about this before, met with Lazio fans, interviewed Lazio fans. Almost all of them to a letter denounce racism, and they also recognize what the perception of Lazio fans are. However, the team does nothing to stop this idiocy from occurring over and over and over and over and over again. Italy has a long list of things they need to do to improve the image of Calcio worldwide. And this is one of those things that we just this is priority one, that you slam Lazio, and either Lazio gets points deducted, or these teams start getting points deducted, because I'll make it bigger than Lazio. If your team gets accurate, verifiable, continued acts of racism, points deducted. I don't know what else to do. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because, something has to be done. And these players, and it happened in, it's not just on the soccer pitch, but also rugby. They've had a recent issue in rugby as well of racism over in Italy. Believe it or not, rugby's huge, especially in the northern part of Italy. So, racism is an issue that they have to get in front of. And the more American ownership comes into Serie A, I'm hoping that gets straightened out, because it's an absolute disaster.
We also have the return of Liga MX this weekend. The Clausura starts, so follow along there as well. The Premier League with all of everything that's going on. Oh no, Ricky Ricardo has found some Mauro and Wanda news.
Oh no.
For old time's sake.
Oh God.
Okay, so this is how we traditionally would try to find things. Let's see, from Ciudad Magazine. Wanda announced that she will not return to Turkey with Mauro. I want to stay in Argentina. Wanda spoke about her relationship with Mauro Icardi, and it's her desire to return and live in Argentina. The issue of children, school, and their upbringing blocks her. And this was a conversation apparently with Angel de Brito. He told me, you think that when I married Maxi, my parents had to sign a permit because I was a minor, and from then on I was always married, he added. Thus, the journalist explained. And now she wants to do it to hers again. She's going to come, and this is translated, by the way, to Ciudad Magazine. Now she wants to do hers again. She's going to come and go for the boys. She told me that she's going to continue with her commitment to Telefe. And they come and go all the time, according to Angel de Brito. Wanda with Maxi Lopez and her father Andres is fine. With Mauro, she's there because she takes a step forward and another one back. So there's your Wanda and there's your Wanda update. And Wanda and Mauro Icardi to figure out how to end the week. So Nick, it was fun to have all of you guys come in for a free for all for over an hour today, discussing the week that was.
Well, I'm sorry for my absence, but it's very hard to do a radio show with kids running around.
Yes,
they do not like such things.
Well, and and for those that have watched in the past with soccer over there, we know that the Duchess has been around. We know that Jackie Fresh has been around to co-host it with you from your particular studio, so we know what's going on. But that's another week of SDH. Nico Moreno and I will be back on the network at 1:30 to do our weekly Thursdays with Nico on a Friday. Good weekend, Ricky Ricardo. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with us. We'll be back at it on Monday. Training camp, moves, players all over the place. And so just strap in, because it's the fun part where we're talking Cruton. It's Cruton season, folks, from now until the end of January. So for Bart, for Jarrett, for Jason, for Jarrett, for Nick, I'm just John. Played safe, everybody. Nick, send us home.
Till next time, everyone, be safe, take care of each other, and mucha Euro, y'all.
Since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. We'll see you 1:30, and then we'll see you Monday.